Hello and welcome back. Today we are diving into one of the most interesting poems of 20th century British literature, Church Going by Philip Larkin. The same video is also available for you to check out in Hindi, so you can do that as well. Today we'll cover a stanza by stanza summary, the life of the poet, the text including its genre and form, major critical voices and the poem's big themes. Now let's get into it. Stanza 1. The speaker enters. The poem opens mid-action. A man on a bicycle arrives at an empty church. He checks first that no service is in progress. He wants to avoid actual worship. Then steps inside and lets the heavy door bang shut. He notices the worn matting, wooden pews, wilting Sunday flowers, now browning, and a thick ancient silence he calls unignorable. Most famously, he has no hat to remove as a mark of respect, so he removes his cycle clips instead, what he himself calls an awkward reverence. The right feeling, but no proper way to express it. The secular man reaching instinctively for something he no longer knows how to perform. He wanders further in, runs his hand around the baptismal font, climbs the lectern and reads a few lines from the Bible, which feel hectoring, bossy or bullying. He pronounces "here endeth" a little too loudly and startles himself with the echoes. Larkin says, snigger briefly. The building seems to mock him. He signs the visitor's books, drops in an Irish sixpence, a coin which is worthless in England, and leaves thinking the visit was not worth the stop. But then he writes 5 more stanzas about it. The irony is the poem's engine. He immediately contradicts himself. Yet stop I did, in fact I often do. He visits churches regularly and every time leaves more confused than when he arrived. The stanza broadens into a bigger question. What happens to churches when they are completely abandoned? Grand cathedrals preserved as museums, objects behind locked glass. Smaller churches left rent-free to rain and sheep. The poem starts thinking about the future. He imagines another future, superstition filling the vacuum left by religion. Women coming after dark to make their children touch a lucky stone, gathering wild herbs to cure cancer, trying to summon ghosts. But Larkin pushes further. Even superstition must die, and then his answer is bleak and exact. Grass, weedy pavement, brambles, buttresses and sky. Just ruins, just nature reclaiming the space. And the poem's pivotal question arrives. What remains when disbelief has gone? Not just when people stop believing, but when they stop even arguing with religion. What is left then? He wonders who the last person to visit a church for any purpose will be. He imagines 3 types. The crew, architectural historians who tap walls and know what rude lofts were. The ruin bibber, who is randy for antique, someone who drinks in the thrill of old decay, and the Christmas addict, who comes for the smell of myrrh and organ pipes and clerical robes, feeling without doctrine, sensation without belief. All 3 represent degraded substitutes for genuine religious purpose. Then he imagines a 4th visitor, someone like him, bored and uninformed, yet still making the journey to the ruins. Why? Because the church, he says, held unsplit so long and equably. That word equably meaning calmly and without favoritism. Everything that is now found only in separation, marriage, birth, death and thoughts of these. The church was the single container, the special shell for all of life's biggest movements. Now they are scattered across hospitals, registry offices and crematoriums. But the hunger to find them together in one serious place, that persists. The poem's final stanza is its emotional and intellectual peak. The tone shifts completely. He calls the church a frosty barn, stuffy, undignified, and immediately says it pleases him to stand in silence there. He arrives at his conclusion. A serious house on serious earth it is. Serious appears 3 times in this stanza. The church is serious because in it all our compulsions meet. The deep, unavoidable impulses of human beings toward love, meaning and facing death, and they are recognized and robed as destinies, not just acknowledged but given permanence and dignity. And this, the poem concludes, will never be obsolete, because someone will forever be suppressing a hunger in himself to be more serious, and that person will gravitate toward this ground. Quote, proper to grow wise, if only that so many dead lie round. The church authority is not divine, it is human. It comes from the weight of accumulated centuries and the presence of the dead in the surrounding earth. Now let us take a look about the details of the author. Philip Larkin was born on 9th of August 1922 in Coventry, England, and died on the 2nd of December 1985 in Hull. He spent most of his working life as a university librarian, a deliberately unheroic existence that fed directly into his poetry. He studied at Oxford, where he earned a first class degree in English and was deeply influenced by Thomas Hardy. Hardy's plain observation, local setting, and unillusioned honesty became the model Larkin worked towards. He was a committed atheist, shaped by an atheist father who was also the city treasurer of Coventry. As a young man, he wrote, quote, I am one of the first generation never to believe that Christ was divine or that each man has an immortal part. Yet he described himself as an angelic agnostic, meaning the shapes and spaces of English Protestant culture were part of him, even as he rejected its theology. His major collections were The Less Deceived in 1955, which is where church-going appears, The Whitsun Wedding in 1964, and High Widows in 1974. Now let us briefly discuss about the text, its genre, form, and major criticism. Church-going is a meditative lyric poem with undertones of a secular elegy. It meditates on the decline of religion but does not mourn in a traditional religious sense. Its question is not how do we get faith back, but rather what remains when faith is gone. The poem has 7 stanzas of 9 lines each, 63 lines in total. The rhyme scheme in every stanza is A B A B C A D C D C. The meter is loosely iambic pentameter, roughly 10 syllables per line, but varied constantly, so the poem sounds like someone thinking aloud rather than reciting. Larkin uses both full rhymes and half rhymes, and the slight unpredictability of the half rhyme mirrors the speaker's uncertainty about faith and meaning. The poem belongs to The Movement, a loose grouping of British poets in the 1950s that reacted against high modernism and neo-romantic excesses. The movement favored clarity over obscurity, formal discipline, irony, and ordinary English subjects. Other movement poets included Kingsley Amis, Donald Davy, and Thomas Gunn. The poem opens in medias res, which means in the middle of action, which is a signature movement technique. Structurally, the poem moves in 3 stanzas. Stanzas 1 and 3 are physical. We are in the church noticing things. Stanza 3 to 6 are speculative. The speaker imagines the future. And then stanza 7 is the philosophical resolution. Now the 3 most essential critical voices of this poem are: first, A. Alvarez, writing in 1962 in Beyond the Gentility Principle, he called the speaker an image of the post-war welfare state Englishman, ordinary, unheroic, uncertain, formed by religious culture he no longer participates in. Alvarez also critiqued the movement for what he called the gentility principle, a habit of emotional safety, of never confronting extremity. He felt British poets like Larkin avoided the rawness of American confessional poets, but he acknowledged that Larkin's work shows everything that was best in the movement and at the same time what was finally lacking. Second, Blake Morrison, in his 1980 academic study, The Movement, called Larkin by far and away the group's finest poet. He argued that church-going is the movement's most representative poem because it confronts a large subject, the decline of religion, through a deliberately small, personal, unheroic occasion. Third, Andrew Motion, Larkin's authoritative biographer, described Larkin's poetry as possessing a very English glum accuracy and the ability to combine the mundane with the profound, the ordinary with the universal. That phrase perfectly describes what happens in the poem: an unremarkable man, an unremarkable church, a universal truth about human needs. Finally, let us also discuss some of the major themes. Theme 1, Secularism and the Decline of Religion, the poem's most immediate theme. By the 1950s, fewer than 10% of the English population attended church regularly, a collapse from near universal Victorian attendance. Larkin captures this precisely. The church in the poem is not under attack, it is simply empty. Nobody rejected it dramatically, people quietly stopped coming in. The browning flowers cut for Sunday and left to wilt say everything. Neglect is gradual and quiet. Theme 2, Faith versus Doubt or Secular Ambivalence. The speaker does not believe in God, but he cannot stop visiting churches. He is caught in secular ambivalence between genuine disbelief and a pull he cannot name or explain. This is not a polemic against religion, nor a lament for lost faith. It is about the uncomfortable middle ground. Someone found by a religious culture who has intellectually left it but emotionally cannot fully go. This is the experience of millions of modern people, and it is why the poem still resonates. Theme 3, The Persistence of Human Need for Meaning. This is the poem's deepest and most important theme. Larkin argues that even in a fully secular society, human beings cannot stop needing to treat their lives as meaningful. The church was the historical expression of this need. When faith dies, the need does not. Theme 4, Time, Mortality and the Power of the Dead. Larkin was obsessed with death throughout his life. The church's authority in this poem is rooted in its centuries of association with mortality. The dead in the churchyard, the funeral, the passing of generations. The poem ends not with God but with the dead, if only that so many dead lie around. Theme 5. Institutional Decay and Cultural Memory. What happens to institutions when they outlive the beliefs that created them? The poem imagines three futures: the museum where religious objects are preserved behind glass, the ruin left rent-free to rain and brambles, and the site of superstition where folk magic fills the vacuum. In each case, even when the original meaning is gone, something keeps drawing people back. Theme 6. The individual in modern society. The speaker is what Alvarez called the post-war welfare state Englishman, a man formed by religious culture who no longer participates in it. Living in a society where the state has taken over the practical functions of the church, healthcare, welfare, registration of birth and death, but has not replaced the meaning-making function. No state institution tells us that birth, love and death are very serious. This is the entirety of the poem Church Going. If you found this video helpful, please like it, subscribe to the channel and share it with your friends. If you have any doubts, please feel free to comment in the comment section below. Again, this video is also available for you to check out in Hindi, so please do that as well. Thank you.